Hey everybody, and welcome back to Josh's Smart Home. I've been asked by a lot of you, how do I have everything connected into Home Assistant? So I want to go over the integrations and protocols that I use to connect my devices into Home Assistant. If you're new here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I want to welcome you in. I've been building out my smart home for about 10 years now, and I want to share with you what I've learned along the way to make your home smarter. I'm going to talk about three distinct areas in this video. The first one is probably the most important, and that's the different protocols. So I'll talk about those first, and then I'll get into all of the different Wi-Fi connections that we have. And following that, I'll get into some of the cloud-based connections. So let's get to it. Now, these protocols are a wireless technology or wireless communication protocol that exists that extends beyond just normal Wi-Fi or LAN connection, but Wi-Fi or LAN connection may be involved to pull those into Home Assistant and make that final connection. So let me start with an example. First, we have Zigbee. That's my most popular protocol I utilize. I have almost 100 devices utilizing the Zigbee protocol with a good, solid mesh network throughout my house. These are all kinds of different plugs and sensors, motion sensors, humidity sensors, temperature sensors, leak sensors, all kinds of things connected via Zigbee. The next item that I have are Z-Wave protocol devices, and I have a couple dozen of these probably around my house, and these include all kinds of other sensors or things that are just not available in Zigbee, because Zigbee is the cheapest protocol to utilize to connect things to your smart home. An example here is something like a water shutoff valve that I have, or different leak sensors, or switches, or even plugs that I have that are Z-Wave protocol to create that strong mesh network. That's a key when you're talking about these different protocols that utilize a mesh network. The other pivotal smart home protocol that I utilize is ClearConnect. That's what's utilized by Lutron Cassetta, and that allows me to connect all of my light switches and all of my different remotes that I utilize for Lutron Cassetta. I have about 75 of those at this point, and that's maxing out their hub. And yeah, it has a hub, but it connects wirelessly from that hub out to the different devices and then utilizes LAN to get back to Home Assistant. The other two protocols I mentioned, Zigbee and Z-Wave, I have dongles that are directly in Home Assistant connected to my Home Assistant Green to allow that integration. The last couple protocols here, you could argue maybe you're really arguing their Wi-Fi protocols, but they do have some distinctions on how they're connected and how they're approved. And the first of these would be the HomeKit integrations. So I have some devices like my garage door openers, other sensors, or plugs that are HomeKit compatible, and I have that compatibility directly in my Home Assistant. So I originally set it up with an iPad using the Apple TV 4K, and then I delete it from that device and add it right into Home Assistant utilizing the Apple HomeKit integration. And I have about 10 devices this way, and they work great. Everything's local, it just works fantastic. And another situation where everything's local is Matter. And here you have two different ways to connect these. You have it either via Wi-Fi or through Thread. And I have some devices in each. And I have about a dozen total devices at this point because I have found that Matter devices tend to be a little more costly, especially the Thread devices. But it might be worth it because these Thread devices haven't had any issues at all. I have some blinds that I utilize via Thread, and they work great. I have had some issues with some of the plugs and other Matter devices that I have via Wi-Fi, but I think that as Matter protocol, evolves and matures, those are going to work great as well. So I think if you're looking to invest for the future, Matter is definitely a great option. And finally, the protocol that I think fits into this category is MQTT. I do have some devices hooked up, so that would be the Link devices and some Govee devices that utilize that protocol for the communication. I don't have too many devices here, maybe a half dozen or so, but it does work and it's pretty resilient on my network. The second category of device connections overall would be the Wi-Fi or Ethernet connections. And like I said, some of the last connections you would have heard are, at least adjacent to those, but these are strictly Wi-Fi or LAN. So the first one here is Reolink. I have all of my cameras that I utilize daily in Reolink. Some of them hooked up in the NVR, some of them hooked up directly through Home Assistant, and some of them hooked up through a Home Hub because I'm always experimenting with different things. So I have all kinds of connections here to see what works best and how things work. And I will tell you, these Reolink devices in Home Assistant have worked flawlessly. There's a good reason that a lot of Home Assistant users utilize Reolink. Some other examples of Wi-Fi or LAN connections that I utilize are the Tesla Powerwalls, a Sonoff switch. We also have Shelly devices, an Apple TV 4K, and an internet printing protocol device hooked up with our multifunctional device so that we can monitor the ink status of our printer. These Wi-Fi or LAN connections really add to the stability of our smart home. We're not reliant on the internet to make everything work. It can all work, locally here from Home Assistant, making those connections and doing exactly what we want to do. The third and final way I have things connected in my smart home to Home Assistant is via the cloud. And I know this isn't ideal. It actually goes just against what I just talked about with having that local integration and always connected items, but there's some instances where you just can't avoid it. A good example of this is our Tesla vehicle. It, of course, has to be cloud integrated because it moves. The same with our phones. And when we utilize the things in the app, it has to be, using our location. And when we're not on the Wi-Fi network, it has to utilize the internet to provide that information back to Home Assistant. An example where this really isn't necessary, but we have it hooked up that way, are our washer and dryer. Our GE appliances there just don't provide the local integration. So we do have a cloud-based integration for those so that we can see all the information in Home Assistant. But back to some others that really make a whole lot of sense to be cloud integrations. And the next one would be the weather forecast. We want to tap into the forecast. And obviously, we don't have a meteorologist on site, so we need the internet and the cloud to be able to make that connection there. The same with our solar forecasting. When we're looking at how much solar we're expected to produce over a certain period of time, over the next day or a couple of days, it makes a lot of sense that we're connected to the cloud to pull that in. And finally, we have a suite of connections that are cloud-based. And these are Google connections, but they're worth it in my opinion. We have our calendar connection, we have our Gemini connection, and we have our Google Assistant connection. So we can broadcast to our smart home devices and have interactions back and forth with the Google Home. So now I want to give you my hierarchy of protocols and integrations to integrate things into my smart home via Home Assistant. Well, the first is obviously Zigbee for the low price, Z-Wave for the reliable connection, and Matter over Thread for that local connection and, freeing up the Wi-Fi as well. Right after that, I would have to put in the Matter connection via Wi-Fi as well. But I think that utilizing Zigbee, Z-Wave, and Matter over Thread are ideal because it does lessen the congestion on your Wi-Fi. And these are typically low communication devices without a whole lot of data, so it works perfectly fine on some of these other protocols. If for some reason I can't use Zigbee, Z-Wave, or Matter over Thread, then I'll look at Wi-Fi options. So like I said, Matter over Wi-Fi or other Wi-Fi or LAN, local connections that are available. If all of that fails, then I guess I'm looking at the cloud. And if I can't find a cloud option, I do have some devices that are not connected in Home Assistant. That might surprise you because I am such a huge advocate, but there are some devices that I just can't live without, and they don't have a Home Assistant integration at this point. So I'll be making another video about those. Make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss that video, because I'm going to be talking about the things that are so important to me that I have them despite the fact that they do not have a Home Assistant connection. But like I said, that's a really last resort for me. Let me know in the comments section below what your hierarchy of integrations and protocols are. There you have it. We've taken a deep dive into the backbone of my smart home. We've talked about the integrations and protocols that I utilize. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.